All right, here we go. The French Revolution. Now, this is the one topic that you need to spend a lot of time on. This is the turning point in European history, and this is one of all the 7 or 8 or 9 different units that we have. This one seems to have the most questions, multiple choice, and probably in one way or another some kind of short answer, or not short answer, free response question, some kind of essay question you have to write about. So this is one chapter, chapter 21 in your book, these set of notes that you have to spend extra time studying. Common questions for multiple choice questions over the years have been about the different estates and the makeup of France, and how the third estate is all these different people and have no privileges and no power. And the first and second estate, first estate being the clergy, second estate being the nobility, have much more of a say and much more power. So I've got questions on the third estate makeup, calling of the third estate, why they were called, the causes of the French Revolution, like the debt that the kings had accumulated. Then they ask you about all these events. For some reason, this is the one time period where they really get into events like the Bread March, the Reign of Terror, and a whole bunch of different Napoleonic things, like the Concordat of 1801 or the Civil Code of 1804. So knowing the order of events also is important, and how the revolution changed from 1789 to 1792. It was actually pretty good. It went pretty well. And then it escalated. Then it got out of control at the Reign of Terror from 93 to 94. And eventually you get Napoleon after the Directory, and then the Congress of Vienna, which undoes a lot of the French Revolution. The Congress of Vienna is also very common for questions, comparing it to the Treaty of Versailles and things like that. I think you will see some sort of cartoon like this one you can see on the screen right now, where they ask you about the third estate. There's dozens of them, where the third estate guy down here is being crushed by the other two. All right, the first estate, the clergy, those who pray. This goes back to medieval times almost, even though we know it changed, the Western Europe changed after the Black Death. But the second estate, these guys here, those who fight the nobility, and down here, those who work. So you're going to probably, there's a good chance you're probably going to see some kind of cartoon with the third estate being crushed by the other estates. So you see lots of things like I have right here, the different estates, the makeup of the estates, who's where, privileges that they have, tax exemptness. They pay a tax, but only to the church, and they do everything else. All right, this is feudalism replaced a little bit in Western Europe, but still exists. And there's all these different things. Louis XV's contribution was he added more debt. We talked about political cartoons a lot this year, and once you desacralize, once you can make fun of and mock and ridicule the king, it's easier to get rid of him. In a world where you respected the king and feared the king, that's not going to happen. All right, Madame de Pompadour, very interesting, a mistress to the king. So common questions that they thought had political power. Common questions about causes. You got Marie Antoinette over here and her big boat hair, and the massive debt that they accumulated from the American Revolution. That's another big factor. The American Revolution kind of inspires the French to go try to do something different. Um, Debt from the Versailles, debt from the wars, debt from Marie Antoinette. Debt is the big thing to remember. All right, we're going to skip that. This is basically just tells you there's other revolutions happening in other places, same time the French one. And then this has got a lot of different stuff on it. This was my example of the first big question. The first big question was, how are they going to vote? Remember, the historical way was where each one of these estates got a vote, and these people would always lose because they would be outvoted 2-1. So that was the first big question, which inspires these list of grievances actually came first. Here's the historical question I just talked about. This is much more modern. This is much more of what the Enlightenment would talk about, with the wealthier people voting, not every common worker person having a say. So then you get into all these different events, and there's no time to run through all of them. This book, this pamphlet, is a response to the choice to vote historically. You have these meetings happening when the The third estate is joined by some members of the first estates. That's another thing you can look at. You can review, who's in what estate. All right, the first and third combined join this. The estates general's gone. You get this. The king's talking about reconciliation, but he fires Necker, and things just keep escalating. Another common theme is um, when nothing gets done, violence happens. So look at the tennis court oath, the promise of a constitution. Awesome, great. Remember the debt. Remember the bad harvest. Remembers people's situation and the fact that they don't have food. Well, a piece of paper that says, hey, you are more equal than you were before doesn't do them any good. So what happens? Violence. All right. This is in Paris. This is in the countryside. Right there. This is going to take the peasants out of the revolution, which greatly changes it. They don't care anymore. They're not willing to risk much anymore. And so it's going to be a Parisian, it's going to be a much more urban revolution after the Great Fear in August. And then you just get more and more events, okay? You promised a constitution right here. Constitution. Don't get it. This is June. About 3 weeks. Violence. Get it. Revolution. Awesome. Okay, you're making the progress that you promised. Great. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. People starve. You got Marat. You got all these crazy guys yelling and screaming, wanting more. Well, finally, once again, so August was the Constitution. September, October, still haven't helped people get food. Bread March. Once again, violence. Lack of action causes violence. Violence pushes the revolution forward, and this is good. All right, the bread march is okay. We're finally going to accomplish something. A nice long list of positive contributions. If the French Revolution ended here, it would be awesome. All right, undoes the intendant general elite system, makes things equal. It's all about equality. Okay, it's all about making everyone equal, finding a way to make everyone equal. Remember, I should have said this, so hopefully you remember. The Enlightenment inspires this. The French Revolution is result of the Enlightenment. This idea of the guys in the 1750s talking about progress, talking about reason, talking about making the world a better place. As I said towards the end of the Enlightenment video, the Enlightenment is predominantly a French movement. It spreads, but it's big in France. Well, makes sense then that a predominantly French Enlightenment is going to inspire a French Revolution. It only makes sense. It's all common sense. It all goes together. So this is good. Okay, right over here. I wrote it right over here. Things are awesome. Revolution's done. Move on. Tag it and bag it. We're all set to go. Except for it's not done because they hold new elections. All right, they hold new elections, and these new elections bring in more Jacobins. So you should review Jacobins. You have the Mountain and you have the Girondists. They're all Jacobins, but the Mountain will be the more violent version of the Jacobins. And remember, these younger, energetic, educated mid-20, early 30s guys are not going to sit around and take threats like the Declaration of Pillnitz, where Austria says, hey, don't hurt my sister. The King of Austria says, don't hurt my sister Marie Antoinette, or you got to deal with me. And Prussia says, yeah, what he said. So, okay, we'll take that as a threat, and you end up getting war. All right, that's not war. This is going to be war. More war. Jacobins all fired up, ready to go. The Marseillaise, tricolor flag, storming of the Tuileries down here on the bottom. Now we're just escalating. Wars happen. Liberté, equality, fraternité. I know you like when I say that. So it just gets out of control. This is a poster that's appeared in cartoons before, or in on the test before. The idea of these three things being what people wanted. All right, and they're going to make some changes. They're going to try to make it as less like the king's world as possible. Get rid of, and remember, the king's world is hand in hand with the Catholic Church in France. Remember, the Edict of Nantes is revocated in 1685 from a couple of videos ago, and France is officially Catholic again. Well, these guys are deists because they're enlightened thinkers. They're not big fans of the Catholic Church. So they get rid of Catholic things. They get rid of king things, and they bring in Republican ideas. Remember the whole papier-mâché goddess thing that Robespierre kind of creates. He tries to escalate all of this. All right, he does escalate all of this. September massacres are just people going wild, busting into prisons and killing people. And that's going to give us this whole conflict between these different groups of people. The sans culottes, this dress, the little red hat, those breeches, those pants, all of this stuff is a big part. You know, these are the people, the working class that pushed the revolution forward. They are pushed forward by the more educated, wealthier people. The reason they push them forward and make the sans culottes to do the work is because there's more sans culottes and there's less of the rich people and they can't do it themselves. And remember, Great Fear back in August, it's not really a peasant revolution. It's more of an urban revolution. Sans culottes are the masses of the urban parts of France. Yeah, I was going to say something else, but I can't remember. So moving on. This just gets more and more violent. The Girondists right up here will be arrested and executed, and next you get the Reign of Terror. Reign of Terror is when socialism will be tried for the first time. A very, what is the question we had? Embryonic version of socialism. That's the planned economy part. They use terror with the guillotine and chopping off the heads of all these different people. Nationalism. Nationalism is a big part of what the French did, and that goes back to this whole little thing right here, this little part right here. One more thing we don't have time to talk about, but it's kind of a common theme. You have lots of different views in your packet. I think I gave you a variety of different views of the people had French Revolution. Burke opposed to it, conservative Englishman. Mary Wollstonecraft loves it. She's a liberal woman. Women's rights are a big part of the French Revolution. So after the Reign of Terror, after Robespierre's papier-mâché mountain, after all that kind of crazy stuff, here we go, more of this, it ends. All right, Robespierre tries to kill himself. He fails. They kill him at the guillotine, and you get the Directory. The Directory is a total debacle. Well, here's more of the... This is Robespierre's death. This is the actual day and month. It was called 9 Thermidor because of the calendar I showed you earlier on. What else we have here? National, okay, all that kind of stuff. Some quotes that we looked at. All right. So when Robespierre is killed, he'll be replaced by these people down here called the Directory. They're basically a bunch of remnants of the old, the old and Jacobin kind of guys, try to hold on to power. They call in Napoleon to protect him. Napoleon comes in to protect somebody, says, if I'm going to protect you, why don't I just do it? Remember, he's not even French. All right, he's Corsican under French control. Here's that freaky, the wax statue again. Big Napoleon things are the top one here. Civil Code of 1804. This is the law code that spreads throughout Europe. That's big. Concordat of 1801. Deal with the Pope. That's big. Right there on the top of the screen over here. Obviously, the most famous thing for Napoleon are wars. I wouldn't worry about little wars or little treaties like this. The purpose of these treaties were to create peace so that Napoleon could start a better war. A better war, meaning a war he wanted to fight. All right, Battle of Austerlitz. If you get a battle question, that's going to be the one. You're not going to get a battle question. Okay, and then the empire. This is a big thing to review. Review, where is it now? Review these things here. France is considered the core, obviously. You got satellite kingdoms. You could look up all the different places where his relatives were in charge, like Spain and some of the Italian city-states. And then you had the big force to be allied with them. The Prussians, the Russians, and the Austrians. A big thing to remember about that is the continental system. It's economic warfare against the British because Napoleon can't defeat them in regular warfare. And that's going to be the beginning of the end. And then the big thing after this is the whole, Congress of Vienna, which they create to deal with the post-Napoleonic War to prevent it from ever happening again. So there you go. Quick history, French Revolution. I got to stop it. Get the next one.